Hi, as you probably noticed in the description here, I'm here to talk a little bit about DXM, to give a warning about DXM, and also to just give my personal story with it. Another important reason that I'm doing this is that I really want closure with this drug, and I think that just putting it out there on the internet will help me have that, because it's been about 8 going on 9 years of using it pretty consistently too, and it's almost like I just need to say goodbye to it and leave it behind in these recordings. Just so you know, I'm using a voice masking software because I don't want anybody to know who I am, and that also means that I'm going to be changing a few minor details about myself, such as my name, maybe certain locations that I'm talking about, and also names of friends. Also be warned that I may ramble. I'm going to try to stay on topic here and cover as much as I can, as best I can. Okay, so let me start off by explaining my first experience with DXM and why I started doing it. Prior to using DXM, I had only used mainly marijuana and Benadryl. I was abusing Benadryl a lot to have lucid dreams. I was just 17 at this time, and it was a real changing point for me because I was becoming more independent. And at the time, I'd been researching lucid dreaming on the internet because I saw a movie about it, and the movie was about lucid dreaming. And so I was on the internet researching that, and I just happened to find this other link that linked me to a website known as the Dextraverse. Now, any of you that are familiar with DXM, especially back in the 2000s period and the early 2010s, that was the site to go to. It was a very active forum with a lot of users and a lot of people really passionate about DXM. So the first time I actually used DXM was actually at a sports game. It was a sports event, and I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of the dosing, so I was very cautious. I had looked up a couple guidelines on how much to use, but I definitely undershot it on purpose. And, you know, after about an hour or so, I still wasn't feeling a whole lot, but then right when we got to the sporting event, I felt this sudden shift, this increase in nausea. But it wasn't a bad nausea, it was just kind of like an excited, tingly feeling in my stomach. And I just remember this was the first time I ever had done a first plateau dose. And so everything felt really detached and also exciting at the same time. And I was pretty much in love with it at that point already. I dabbled with small amounts like this a few times after that. And then I got one of my very best friends, who I'm just going to call Dan. I got him to try it with me one night. And for most of you who've done DXM, you know that the nighttime or the darkness with DXM adds a lot of special effects, if you will. And so we were having quite the time of our lives. We were at his mom's house, and we were just walking around the neighborhood in the middle of the night. And this is the first time that I'd ever reached a higher plateau than the first. Possibly was almost on the verge of the third plateau this particular night. And it was also the first time I'd noticed a completely mystical effect from the chemical. My friend Dan and I, we were basically reading each other's thoughts, and it was almost like we had this group consciousness going on. It was like an unspoken, understood language that we were following without our own free will. So I continued to just enjoy this so much, and then I remember very clearly the first time that I had a very negative experience with it, and I was at one of my family members' houses, and I basically just overshot the dose, plus I hadn't eaten a lot, which, you know, as most of you know, that boosts it a lot. And at this family member's, I just got completely stuck, and I felt like kind of like a goldfish with really bad short-term memory. It was like every 10 seconds or maybe every 30 seconds, it's like my memory would just repeat, and I couldn't ever really figure out what was happening. And this was very traumatizing, terrifying, but also intriguing to me. And I feel like if I just stopped after that day, realizing the danger that I just encountered, my life would probably have taken a much different course. There's a second time that this very heavy trauma hit me while taking this drug, and that was like a year later, and I'll get into that in future posts. I'm not going to describe it today, but basically I was just consumed by this chemical. It made me feel like, one of my friends actually told me this, and I agree, that it makes you feel like you're in this pop-up book where everything around you is just this fake thing sticking up, this fake part of a pop-up book. And even my friends around me were like not understanding. And you got to understand that my friends at the time and we would pretty much take anything that was given to us, but they mainly started to back away from me, and I just kind of went into my own world. I stopped talking a lot. I was always the most adventurous, hyper talkative person, but this kind of took the adventure and put it more in my own head instead of having to go out and seek it. But they didn't understand that, because on the outside looking in, it just looks like I was becoming a vegetable, basically. And another unusual thing at this point was that it seemed like it was giving me this knowledge of things out of thin air without having to research it. And I didn't understand what this hidden knowledge meant, because I had never looked into it. And that's something I'm also going to get into in a future post. But I just started recognizing that there was some kind of other element to this chemical.